I think Oregon's going to be better at the safety position next year. I'm optimistic about that for a couple of reasons. So I want to talk about Na'eem Offord first, and then we'll get to the story I saw on Dillon Thieneman, the transfer safety from Purdue that Oregon brings in. So Sam Spiegelman of Rivals was going through a bunch of big-time prospects that are going to make an impact in college football or could make an impact early in their careers. And he was talking about Na'eem Offord. Now, this is a guy who had been rumored to be wanting to flip away from Ohio State going back to the summer months, and Auburn was seen as the leader, and Oregon swooped in on National Signing Day and was able to get him. 5-star defensive back, listed as a corner originally. Now, Rivals has him as an athlete, and Spiegelman was going around in the Twitter sphere the other day. And by the other day, I mean yesterday, as you're listening to or watching the show. Though it could be the other day. Some of you listen 2 or 3 days after, and that's okay. I appreciate you regardless. He said that Offord has the ability to play both the safety and the nickel position, and that's probably what he might even play at Oregon. Also described him as an elite return specialist. Now, Oregon's return game, I have been, shall we say, not thrilled with what the Ducks have brought to the table all the time, or at least coming into this year I wasn't. But then they put Tez Johnson back as a punt returner. He was really good. Whittington as a kick returner, I thought did a great job. And most kickoffs are touchbacks nowadays because kickers are hitting the weight room a little bit more and they're just getting a lot better. Like every other aspect of sports, athletes are just getting better at whatever their job is. So it's not as big of a deal, but something perhaps to watch for in spring football if Offord can kind of capture that role. Because you've still got Noah Whittington in there, in theory, to return kicks. But for the punt return game, Ryan Pelham was next in line, but he's no longer with the team. So Offord playing as a nickel or as a safety, as a true freshman, I get excited about that prospect. Because when you have a guy that comes in and can be that good immediately, I think about a guy like Caleb Downs at Ohio State, who was at Alabama as a true freshman, transferred to Ohio State. He was an instant impact guy. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school and was immediately one of the best safeties in college football. I heard someone talking, I think it was Josh Pate maybe, that said he was talking to an NFL scout discussing Ohio State's roster, who said if Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs were eligible for the draft this year, both guys would be first round, probably top 10 picks, and the first non-quarterbacks taken off the board. Like, they are crazy, crazy talented. And we saw that all season long. They're a big reason why Ohio State won the national championship, and a big reason why Ohio State will be the Big Ten title favorites going into next year as well. But for Offord, if he's going to move and play safety or nickel, I think either one of those spots could be available. Now, Oregon brought in Tharon Johnson from Northwestern as a transfer who has had a solid couple of seasons as a Wildcat. I think they could play him on the outside. I think they could play him at nickel. He's not someone that has played over the top at safety. I haven't heard or seen anything to indicate that there's a position change looming there. But if Offord just shows up and beats him out in spring ball, well, then you would know that Offord is for real and he's going to live up to all that potential and whatnot. But at the other safety position, that right now is a glaring hole. I say other safety position because Thieneman's going to play one of them, the Purdue transfer who I'll talk about in just a moment. But if Offord is able to come onto campus and truly be an instant impact guy, there is a starting spot right there. Even if you presume that Tharon Johnson is the starting nickel and Thieneman is the starting safety, who's at the other safety spot? Now, there are more experienced players who might be in that position. Peyton Woodyard, for instance, was a guy who was usually first off the bench. He was a special teamser this past season for the Ducks and was usually first off the bench, or one of the first safeties off the bench when the game got out of hand and they put in the number twos defensively there. Is he ready to go? Is he ready to be a starter? I don't know. That's something spring football might tell us more. But that position, to me, is as wide open as any on Oregon's depth chart going into 2025. So listed as a corner originally, and look, maybe he's so good he plays there. Maybe he's one of Oregon's starting corners, because I look around at what Oregon's bringing back or what they could have in the secondary, and I mean, I think you've got at least 3 corner spots that are not up or that are up for grabs, shall we say. Nico Reed, Jabbar Muhammad, Dante Manning all played key roles this year. Who's replacing him? I mean, Jaleel Florence is back and coming off of an injury. Now, if he's back to full health, yeah, he's probably one of your starters. Who's the other one? I don't know. That's obviously for the coaching staff to decide. But the idea of Offord making an instant impact, I don't think is far-fetched. But he has to come in and be impressive right away. Because, it's so hard on either side of the ball to play as a true freshman. It's not impossible. It is exceedingly difficult. Maybe it's a situation where he gets worked in kind of early in the season a bit and plays more as the year goes on and he gets up to speed. Or maybe he is able to just step on the field and make an impact. Brian Smith, our lockdown recruiting guy, is bullish on what Offord is able to do as a true freshman. So maybe he'll just be so talented. He'll be the defensive version of Decorian Moore, where you just can't keep the guy off the field. You got to put him out there. He's that good. So that's one thing to watch for. Another thing to watch for that also dips into some NIL discussion is Blake Ruffino over at a different network said on a show recently, quote, I talked to somebody else in the SEC that Dillon Thieneman, the transfer safety from Purdue that Oregon got, was the number 1 player on their portal board. The money that this kid turned down to go to Oregon is kind of insane, end quote. Two thoughts there. Let's go to the football one first. Number 1 portal player, not number 1 safety, not number 1 defensive back, but some SEC program out there, maybe it was Mississippi State and they're just void of talent. I don't know. Somebody in the SEC had him as the number 1 player on their portal board. That's pretty darn good. He did not have, according to PFF, the best season this past year. Wasn't bad, just wasn't as good as he was in his freshman campaign. Purdue had a tough year. I'm optimistic about what he can bring to that position because Oregon needs more playmaking from the safety spot. No doubt about it. So hearing that another SEC school said this is the number 1 guy we want to go get and he chose Oregon anyway, that's a good sign. Number 2 was the second part of it. Let me read you that part of the quote again. This is according to Blake Ruffino, who seemed very confident in the sources he has placed elsewhere or somewhere in the SEC. The money that this kid turned down to go to Oregon is kind of insane. That's weird. I was told reliably by I don't even know how many people at this point, no one goes to Oregon unless they're getting the most amount of money. That's crazy. That's crazy. Now, do you think it's possible? Just throwing it out there as a possibility. Do you think it could be that that's just other people not liking Oregon and projecting the easiest form of firing a shot across the bow in the Ducks' direction? Do you think that's what it could be? I don't know. Maybe. I can't say with any certainty that that's the case. I'm just saying that the evidence goes against that narrative that you see put out there a lot in a lot of different circles. But hey, let's not jump to conclusions, shall we? Wink.